Here, I'm just gonna wait for you guys to ask to join because I think when I send a request for you, it's getting mixed up. Go ahead and ask to join, and I'll do it that way. Okay. I think it was. Okay, that should work. Someone joins. It's not letting me add you for some reason. Let's see if I can add Terry. Maybe you guys can do it under his. Yeah, it's saying you're unable to join. Okay, see if you can accept that invite.
And there we go. We can
Okay. Yeah, I got you now. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
And it wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
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 Well,
there we go.
First, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to do this. You know, I really wanted to do some things differently from what I had seen people doing in Tulsa, sort of. So I really wanted to bring you guys on to do this. And I thank you for taking the time to do it. Now, I know you guys have talked a lot about the bands when you did the actual documentary, but I kind of wanted to get into, I have heard a little bit about when you decided to do it. Can you kind of go back to that?
What, like 2011-ish?
It was originally a vanity project.
Yeah. I was living in Colorado at the time and was going to be moving back here soon. And I was talking with Brian, and I said, you know, we should do something like this. And I was thinking more of the lines of just getting some old VHS tapes with a few talking head interviews type thing. And he said he'd actually been thinking about doing something along the lines, and he took it to a whole other level once we got going on it.
Yeah, I do. I have my own gear and do it for a living, so I was like, hey, let's get together and do this because you know we were both in, all three of us all in the scene, so that's kind of where the interest came from. So yeah, about 2011 it started. And first we were just going to do our generation, like from mid 80s, mid 90s, and then as we got going, there's so much backstory. It's like let's just do the whole thing, you know, from the beginning to mid 90s. We had to cap it. We capped it with our generation pretty much.
Now, were there other people that were, I mean, were any of you like not wanting to do it?
I mean, people that we interviewed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we did interview somebody who decided to back out.
Yeah, we did the interview and he ended up backing out later just because we won't.
It's unclear.
It's unclear why, because we had it edited and everything, and then you know we went to give him the permission, the forms to fill out waivers. He's like, no, he's a little strange. He's cool, but he's just a little strange. So we just interviewed somebody else, took his spot.
Yeah, I think for some of the things that I do on my other channel, you know, I maybe it's because fighters are a little different or some of them have bad memories of what they were doing. Some guys are kind of apprehensive to talk about their past a little bit, you know.
Well, we did have some people that were hesitant to gloss over something. I mean, you know, in underground rock and roll, a lot of seedy stuff happens. And maybe 20, 30 years on, people don't really want to celebrate it, but
Statute of limitations doesn't run out on everything.
So
now,
yeah, there was, you know, certain subjects people might have been a little sketchy about talking about.
But for the most part, everyone was
to the scene. I was asking Brian about like, because I know you guys talked about the bands a lot. I've heard in different interviews you guys did. I watched the film, so I know I didn't want you to have to just rehash the same stuff over and over again. But I wanted to ask about like, you know, when the scene was starting and some of these venues that hosted, you know, punk music. Because even I think I'm from more you guys' era as well. You know, I watched a lot of the MTV and some of those shows, but there really wasn't any. I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't see a lot of punk even on MTV back then, like Headbangers Ball and shows.
Well, I remember it was a big deal when they put Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies on.
Yeah.
That was like, of the
Yeah.
American punk, that was like a big deal at the time. And they were almost considered like sellouts at the time for doing that.
But then again, Rain and Blood was Slayer's sellout record too, so who knows?
But, you know, like when these venues, like, let's talk about some of the early venues and why they wanted to host this kind of music. Because, like I said, you weren't really seeing it anywhere on TV or anything. What made them want to do it?
I don't think anyone wanted to do it. I think somebody got an in and they found out, oh, we can make money off of this. So I don't think the club owners were necessarily into the sound, but it's like, okay, well, they got a dead bar and these guys are bringing in money on a Sunday night. Cool.
Yeah, it was, you know, I mean, before our era, we're talking late 70s, early 80s, it was a fresher concept, so it was an exciting new thing that a lot of curious people would just go check out. So some of these bar owners at the time would take a chance for a short while, but then, you know, the police would make it short-lived. And the young punkers probably aren't spending the kind of money that you need to really keep something afloat for very long. So unless something was more established like the Crystal Pistol that had their own paying customers on the weekend that could take care of everything else, then they could have their shows, their punk rock shows on Tuesday and Wednesdays or whenever, you know.
Yeah, it was mainly a country bar. Nitro was really the first one that actually was made for that for the most part. The other ones, they just let, like Blue Grotto was bar to let bands play, same with Crystal Pistol. They were important, but Nitro was actually, as you saw, we don't need to rehash, but it was going to be for that sampler record. Explosive, yeah. And then, so it was really made for punk bands. They didn't have like country or anything else at the time. So
Where was Nitro located?
it's where Blackbird is now.
6th and Peoria, a couple blocks away.
Yeah, still an active live venue. The
So-
room is.
Back then, you felt like you were saying it was more designed for that kind of audience, you would say?
Oh, Nitro, yeah, for sure. That's what it was for.
Yeah, Nitro was.
Yeah, they didn't have like Crystal Pistol had country bands during the week and like one night,
Was it Wednesdays and Sundays? Or
2 nights for punk. So it was a country bar, and then Blue Grotto was an existing just a bar, and that was like where it kicked off. But it only lasted like 6 months, I think. But it had been like a bar forever before that, so it wasn't like for punk only, you know, kind of thing.
Kay Rahal is who owned Nitro when he owned the building.
Still does.
Yeah, so he could do whatever he want. So it wasn't necessarily a bar that was open 7 days a week that I know of. It was,
Right.
It opened for the shows, and he had other ventures going on. So, I mean, I know
wasn't
Kay.
relying on this for his
Right.
Like,
So,
did you
yeah.
guys ever talk to him back then about, you know, he wants to put on these shows, why he wants to do it, that kind of thing? I'm interested in why the scene kind of popped up the way it did and why people, like, again, I refer back to the stuff I'm doing with fighting and stuff. There were people who took a chance on that. There wasn't always an audience for it, you know, like there is now. So I'm just curious about why these guys, or like you said, they want to make money, but why
In the
they stop-
beginning,
You know, at the time, I have no idea why Kay put up with that much shit. Because, I mean, even the bands that he liked and were friends with him, we were still assholes. So, you know, but years later we talked to him and, you know, he really had a passion for it. He really liked seeing, you know, young people, you know, in this new creative sound and this new creative outlet. And he liked giving them a place to be able to do this, you know,
yeah, he put up with a lot.
Yeah, he put up with a lot so that we could, you know, cut our teeth on playing in front of 10 people and being nervous as shit for that.
Yeah, no kidding. That's funny.
Yeah, that's
Get
what
butter- go on in front.
a lot of people, but he was still behind it, you know. I'm just interested in why that was.
You know, and I think after that, there were a few other places that opened up that I think saw, hey, he's making money on it. We can siphon some of that off. But Kay was really the one that, you know, he had a passion for it.
Now you're talking about your era where it was more like kind of thrash and punk. What made you decide to go more the punk route, perhaps?
Nitro had all the indie underground things. So, I mean, it wasn't just thrash. It was like maybe a band that like sounded like The Cure or The Police, and that whole kind of stuff was going on there too. The college rock stuff.
Yeah,
There was a whole
other
scene
bands
of that,
going on,
that
yeah.
stuff going on too.
And pretty much the scene was so small, if you were part of one, you were probably, you know, at least circled into some of the other ones. I mean, when I was in Asylum, we'd play with, you know, Baby M and, you know, Tex Montana or something. It would, you know, Kay would just put these shows together of whoever was available that night. Nobody had more than a 1 hour set, and nobody wanted to hear more than 1 hour from a particular band anyway. So it just kind of, everybody got thrown together, and it was what it was. And, you know, the scene was the scene, you know. We were all, no matter who was playing, we were probably at Nitro that weekend.
So, yeah, if you weren't playing Journey or Boston covers, it was about the only place to go for a while.
It's original music pretty much. And
Yeah.
it was more than punk. I mean, it was a lot of different things. That's kind of how it started off as, like a new wave punk place. And then it was known more for punk, but all types of bands played there. I mean, we went and saw all, I mean, every genre almost, except I don't remember seeing country there, but.
Now,
We did play with it.
as musicians, why did you guys in your bands decide to go more the punk route when you said you were still kind of part of the thrash generation?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, when we started playing, when our band started playing, Dave was pretty much into just late 60s, early 70s, you know, Jim Morrison and Deep Purple and things like that. Stacy was into Ozzy. I don't know what the hell I was into. I was listening to Metallica, and my girlfriend was feeding me Black Flag tapes. You know, it just sounded like what it sounded like. Honestly, we just, realistically, in the beginning, we probably weren't good enough to fit into any particular genre. So it was what it was. And, you know, I mean, we thought we were more metal. We thought we were more, I don't know, trippy, alternative metal. But going back later, and we redid a reunion show in 2010, and it was definitely a lot more punky than we thought it was at the time. I mean, we didn't really try and pick a genre. We just sounded like whatever the hell it sounded like.
Our longest tenured drummer at the time in the 80s into the early 90s came from a hardcore punk rock background. And so that his propulsion, I guess, gave us that vibe. I mean, we were kind of a little loose, and then my yelling vocals were probably closer to punk than they were to metal, but we had a shredder guitar player, so we were unintentionally crossover.
My bands didn't make it in. We weren't big enough. I played.
They were all very short.
Yeah, my bands. I used a little of it for soundtracking for Easter eggs, but you know, even though we did that side, nobody mentioned them. We just played parties and stuff, you know. And these guys were in the metal scene first, and then around our genres when like Metallica and Megadeth kind of merged, people were listening to punk and that's why it changed. And then these guys, a few years earlier, was like metal, and then they were thrash, and so punk guys would go see them play, and it was kind of, you know, all came together.
Yeah, at the very beginning, I seem to recall you didn't cross over, and then within 2 years, everyone said everybody else.
Like 86, 87.
Yeah. The long hair is fighting the punkers thing. And Terry and I had long hair, so. But we always thought the punker girls were cute. So that's why we went to punk shows.
Now, Terry, I thought you said something interesting. You said you thought maybe you weren't good enough to, was it play thrash?
Yeah.
Is that men or?
If you heard our first tape, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We just picked a riff and hammered on it for 5 minutes and called it a song. You know, I mean, it was later before we started adding, you know, verse choruses and bridges and whatever else.
And when they tried to play at the true metal places, they were expecting like
Oh yeah,
hair rock, and
we
they
did
come in
not.
and just thrash, and they pay them to quit.
we did.
And they were really good. They were just fast and not what they expected.
We mainly
The hustle, was that the word?
the Hustle
Yeah.
and Papa John's Roadhouse.
I remember.
So there's some of these metal places. They literally walked up after first set, handed us the money, and told us to get out.
Yeah, there was a big hair rock. I mean, at the time in the 80s, like, we used to play this hair metal bar called the Windjammer. They had shows 5 nights a week. That's how much people liked live music. And now the middle of the week shows weren't very populated, but that was like our boot camp and our first band is we would have to play 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week at this place. So we
played the covers we wanted to play.
Yeah.
Nobody else really wanted to hear them.
Yeah,
To fill
and
time.
change the words to the songs that people get all mad about and stuff like that. But so, yeah, there was this whole other metal scene that we kind of were part of too, but we didn't really fit in either world really. So we just decided to piss everybody off in both worlds.
Yeah, like I think I said in the movie, I said we invented a genre that died with us.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good. I don't really see punk around much now, you know, or even. I don't know. When did you think you stopped seeing it a lot? You know, it seems like
it died
a long time.
It seems like
Still
it's definitely
out.
back.
He's in a punk
yeah.
band right now, The Shame.
Yeah.
Kind of punk away band.
I'm playing The Shame. I mean, we've got some shows coming up. There's a lot. There's actually promoters here in town bringing some bigger names through town. The Casualties just played. Yeah, there's still a scene. I mean, Barkingham Palace still has basement shows. So,
But
it's
even
still
like
there.
I was in the
I
kind of thrash and the metal, and it seems like you're not really even seeing a lot of that, at least in the mainstream anymore. You know.
Well, you gotta, you know, we've reached that age where we're not always in the know about what the kids are doing.
You're right.
Well, the kids are still doing their own thing. I mean, the people our age and we were doing it, you know, when we were 18, 19, I'm sure they were completely unaware of what the kids were doing. You know, they find their way to do their own thing.
I think it was also a lot easier because there was only one place to play at any given time, so that was it. You knew that was the place to go. Now, if there's some metal band playing, you don't know where they're playing. You know, they could be playing. You know, there's a lot of stuff popping up at Whittier now over by Street Center. Anyway, Whittier.
Over at Circle Cinema.
Yeah, by the Circle. They have a lot of shows these days.
And a guy I work with, Tip, who runs the radio station where I work, he's in a band called the Stiffies, and what's the other one? Soaker. And I was asking him about, he's in his 30s probably, and I'm guessing, and I was asking him about the younger scene, and he said, yeah, the Foolish Things, I guess, downtown, the coffee shop, they're doing shows. And so I asked, because we're not in the younger scene, obviously, but still going on. I don't think it was like it used to be, of course, but.
Yeah, actually, I just saw a show this morning for Josie Records, having a punk band out of Verdigris and another, you know, some small towns are coming to Tulsa to play at Josie Records for a free show. So it's still there. I think it's just a little more spread out.
You got to look for it. That's why it's the underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a band called,
for me, I'm looking at who's playing at the Brady, who's playing at the Canes. You know, like not the BOK, but some of the smaller venues, and it just doesn't seem like there's as much like thrash or metal around in these venues anymore.
Country these days, I think.
yeah, you'd be right on that. I haven't seen much thrash anymore really around.
Nah, I don't
No,
think so.
yeah.
I mean,
In that aspect.
yeah, his old guitar player Stacy, their old guitar player Stacy, he's in a band called Severmind now, and they're, I wouldn't say thrash, but they're heavy. I mean, you know, but there is still some bands kind of like that. His band's pretty heavy, Greenhorn Saints, but they're more, I don't know what you'd call you guys.
I mean, I think like the Shrine is like
Right.
the you know, they get the nationals that aren't quite Canes level, but they get the well-known nationals that would have been maybe Canes level 15, 20 years ago.
Like Agent Orange and
Agent Orange, Helmets played there,
Right.
DRI is coming there.
DRI played
So
there.
I guess just about that. Maybe the Vanguard gets some stuff too.
yeah, those are like the two.
The Shame will be playing with DRI, by the way, so you show up.
Yeah,
and get to see
like
Ryan.
I noticed when they came. I didn't go to it, but yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, so that is a good point. You know, I didn't think about that, but what you're saying, they do still have some in those venues. You're right, but yeah, I mean that is a good. Like maybe Vanguard has taken over where the Canes used to do. Like I saw Pantera at the Canes, I saw Faith No More, I saw a lot of different bands at the Canes, White Zombie, all these. But when I look like Canes or Brady, they aren't really having a lot of these kind of bands anymore. But I guess you're right in that the Vanguard is kind of maybe taking that spot.
Yeah, Vanguard and the Shrine get a lot of those. And then again, like I said, there's bands like the Casualties, punk bands that are coming back through that are smaller but older. The Verrucers played at White Rabbit, so there's still some old school bands coming through. Rabbit Hole, whatever. Same thing.
White Rabbit.
They're still coming through. Like I said, there's the guys from Boulevard Trash, Tony and Michelle. They bring bands through all the time.
They do the punk rock flea market every year.
Punk rock flea, yeah. They'll have bands coming through at Mercury or Whittier or wherever they can stick them.
Now, I think it was Dave that mentioned like bands that used to be Canes level, or as musicians, how's that determined? Because I mean, Canes isn't necessarily a big venue, When you say, yeah, I'm maybe you could expound on that.
His helmet would have sold out the Canes, but now, I mean, probably half the people that liked Helmet in their 20s don't even realize they still exist as a band, So, maybe in a bigger market, they would be playing those bigger venues, but here.
Yeah, no one said, hey, did you get the new Helmet album? It's kick-ass, and everybody's, there's not a big buzz about it. Now they're just playing off of, hey, you remember that one record we put out? That he was so badass way back then. You can come see us play that again.
Right. Yeah. They're not up and coming. They're more, nostalgia acts. It's weird. It's like DRI's coming, and they're a great legendary band, but I don't think they put out a record in like 30 years. So they're, a nostalgic act. So, and like they were supposed to play the Canes once in like '91, and it got canceled due to the weather, and we happened to play that same night at Nitro, and it was one of the biggest shows we ever had because all these people come in from out of town to see DRI. But now DRI has kept going and kept going and kept going. So, I mean, when you get to our age range, half the people might say, yeah, I'll catch them next time.
Right.
Even though someone's going to be dead by then.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's some young punk rock band that, that'll pack it with the kids. So it's all varies on, the age range and how, if you're going to get, AARP members to get off the couch.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of these old things, because I was talking to Brian about Starship Records and Tape, Mohawk, these things that were kind of big in the music scene when I was in high school. I mean, what are you guys' memories of those? Because those were like a big part of music in Tulsa.
Starship. I mean, I started riding my bike there when I was like 14, and I went there forever. And then it was cool. It was like an old house, and it was, the new Starship, I'm glad they're still around, but it's just not the same. Yeah. The old Starship, you walk in, and then Mohawk, Paul, he used to work at Starship, and that was a place to go for alternative punk, all kinds of things, and he lasted, about 10 years, maybe 12 years, something like that.
I'm not real sure. Yeah. I used to go to Starship to buy the zines and read reviews of records, and then I would go buy all the records. Like I would get this magazine there, this import magazine from England called Metal Forces, and if they gave a record a good review, I'd go buy the cassette of it. And then they also had a section in that zine that had other zines across the country that you could mail off for. And we did a lot of networking just through getting the zines, because then we'd find similar bands in surrounding towns like Dead Orchestra in Wichita and strike up friendships with them to network. So that all comes from going down to Starship and buying the latest demo from a local or the zines to find out who's doing what, when, and where. They had the big poster board outside. It was with all the flyers and all the scene. And then Mohawk, Mohawk came a little later, but they definitely added to it and supplemented what Starship was doing. They just did it more on the south side of town.
When Starship, if you go by there's a big telephone pole out by the road, and all the staples are still there from the flyers. I mean, it's just like tons of staples. So yeah, that's still there. We ran by it a couple times. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, if you wanted to know what was going on that weekend, just drive by Starship, rip a flyer off the wall, and take it with you.
Yeah, it's amazing, like the things you had to do back then compared to now. The flyers were so important. I know you guys mentioned that in the film, or also in that interview at Rogers State, where you're saying they were asking why you came up with the names of the bands that you did, and you're saying, well, if you're on a flyer, you got to have kind of a name that would maybe show somebody to see it, you know.
He did a lot of flyers.
Yeah, he was one of the best in town.
His skulls
flyers
were to die for.
Yeah. The best skulls.
The best skulls ever. Yeah, Terry did a lot. He did a lot of funny programs even for Asylum, which we probably can't talk about on here, but they were funny.
Then he got more psychedelic, and so a lot of metal guys were like, just give us the skulls, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, I started doing better drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it's cool that, you know, back then, you know, to kind of get your name out, the networking was so much more difficult, but still could be effective, you know, as far as like the flyers or word of mouth among friends and stuff. People still found a way to see these shows, even though today it was way more easier.
It is, but it's also oversaturated. At some point, you know, you go to your Facebook events and it's just, there's too much shit on there. Again, you know, it wasn't constantly inundated. It wasn't in your face. It wasn't like every time you get on Facebook, there's another fucking commercial for another fucking band and another fucking show, you know, like it is now. It's like, if I wanted to know, I had to go to a place to find out. And you know, I think now it's just like commercials on TV now to me.
And, you know, it's sad that we don't get the personalized posters. I'm reading some of these comments here. Now, I mean, everything looks so slick on Facebook. Nobody makes a physical copy, but hey, the flyer, like, wow, that looks totally pro, but it's some, you know, clip art computer generated thing, whereas, you know, I'm getting old crotchety, but back in our day, they were all hand drawn and created, either a collage, a media collage, or, you know, an artist, you know, that you wanted to keep it and save it. And now you never even think about, you design a flyer just for the virtual world. You never think about, rarely, you know, I want to get a physical copy of that for myself.
Well, and the flyers, somebody put on there, they should be posted. They're online. Somebody's got them posted. Like, there's a Facebook page and a website. You can see the old Tulsa flyers.
I also think they mean that, if I'm reading what the guy means, is like, he thinks people should still hang flyers.
Oh, it should be posted.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's just
I thought that.
I don't know where there's not a place, a specific place to go see them. So where do you put it? Do you just put them up on poster on telephone poles going down Brookside? Or I mean, even the new Starship, there's posters hanging in, but it's usually for somebody's, you know, newest release that you can buy inside. It's not as many poster or show.
Yeah,
show
they just already
flyers.
come up and staple them everywhere.
Yeah, these days, if you're going to make a poster, you make about 10. You know, 30 years ago, you made like 100.
Yeah, and you go to Kinko's and you find the machine that sucked the least.
Yeah. The one that had almost some toner in it.
You know, it might be cool if somebody went back and like started putting up a few flyers somewhere just to annoy people or whatever. It might, you know, it might be kind of funny. I don't know if it would be effective.
Starship's got a giant wall outside. I think they should go put up a giant piece of plywood, put a frame around it just like the one they used to have, and let people just go crazy with it, you know? Again,
It's its own art form.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, because, you know, to do something different, you know, they could still use Facebook and all the social media, but maybe just those big yellow or pink neon flyers, you know, like they used to have, and, you know.
Yeah.
Icon had a bunch of the
Icon.
visual. Yeah, they had the whole, that was their trademark, was the big oversized Dayglow flyers.
Dallas did most of those, didn't he?
Yeah.
Dallas,
Sex
yeah, he did a
graphics.
ton of them.
Now, what do you guys remember about Icon? I mean, I know Brian was saying, you know, it's mostly a dance club, but it was also kind of a popular place when I was in high school. You guys probably in high school too at that time, based on what you're saying, guys.
Yeah, you know, I think,
Yeah.
honestly, he brought through a lot of bands, you know, he brought through a lot of touring bands and always had a lot of locals opening for him, but I don't really remember that many just local shows.
Yeah, he mainly had local bands opening for national acts, which was cool. But it's a completely, like, if there wasn't shows there, we didn't just go hang out at Icon because it wasn't our thing. It was for other, you know. But that's, like Dave said it well in the doc, you know.
It was cool that it was all ages, and a lot of that, the punk rock scene, if you can't get into it, you're 21, well, half the people have outgrown it at that point, or are starting their careers, you know. So, I mean, that was the cool thing about Nitro, I think, was supposed to have been 18, but they didn't really care. And I know that Icon had an all ages thing going on. They just had a separate bar area. So, it's usually the younger people that are wanting to go out, find something to do, and the most enthusiastic. So, I mean, Icon had a lot of great shows. I mean, there was, he had a circuit like maybe a label, like I think a lot of amphetamine reptile bands, which was a label.
Met some Sub Pops.
That, those like, oh, okay, Icon's on that circuit. So if you're playing in Tulsa, you're going through Icon. And then Souders would, throw a local band a bone, and you can go, oh, wow, we got to play with this band or that band. Like I was in Bunnies of Doom, and we got to open for the electronic band KMFDM, and it was probably the biggest show I ever did up to that point. So that was the cool thing about Icon, but it was completely different than the vibe you had going on at Nitro / Eclipse.
I remember when I was in Pitbulls and Dave was in Bunnies, we had Pitbulls, Bunnies, and Guy Smiley, and we kept trying to do this show, and every time we tried to do it, something happened. The club had the dates wrong, so the show didn't happen. One of them, I think Bunnies was playing, and the owner got jumped, so they canceled it. So we kept trying to get the same lineup because we were all friends. So I finally got it. We finally got it booked at Icon. Dave Souders called me up that day and said, I've got to cancel because he had a business partner at the time, and his business partner didn't want any more, just no more live shows, let's just do dance. And I had to beg him. I'm like, no, seriously, I promise you there's going to be a lot of people there. I promise you we've been trying to do this, and it just keeps not happening. Let's do this. So he said, okay, we'll do it. He's like, but if it doesn't go well, I'm never going to have another band again. And we absolutely killed it that night, and he started having bands from then on.
Yeah, Guy Smiley was a reggae band, but Brian, the guys in there were friends, so it was a cool combination show. It was like vastly different music for the most part.
Were you guys ever involved with like Edge Fest? Remember Edge Fest?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Were you guys
they didn't
out at all?
Like one of the last Edge Fest. So they didn't really have locals in the beginning. Towards the end, they had locals. I think one of the last Edge Fests they had, there was one downtown, and I was in a band called Gut Wrench at the time, and we played the side stage for that one.
Yeah, who started Edge? Who started that anyway? Was that Josh? Or I can't remember who started Edge Fest.
I said 4x5.
Well, they did, but there's some guy.
I think there was, I think there was something called Edge Fest, and I don't know if it was Edge Fest later that had like a bunch of the local bands, but it was like Baby and Melodramatic Wallflowers and some of those bands, and maybe it seems like it was out at RSU or something. I wasn't there, but I've seen flyers.
Yeah, Edge. I was thinking of something else. You're right. Edge Fest was more.
That was the big one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
But like I said, they didn't have local bands until towards the end of it, from what I recall, and that was a year. I'm trying to think of who headlined.
That was when alternative was getting commercially viable.
Yeah,
And thus, is it alternative anymore if it's commercially viable?
Started and then got bigger.
Yeah, D-Fest was always a good
Radio station,
D-Fest, literally.
a lot of obscure music. I forgot what channel it was, but there was a college radio station that was in Tulsa that played a lot of stuff that wasn't getting played on the radio.
KTOW 102.3. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in the dock. And then,
Yeah, that was really cool. It didn't last long, but I mean, it wasn't all one format. Each DJ had their own show. So somebody would be playing the, whatever you called the stuff, like the Cure and the Smiths, and you'd get that for 2 hours, and somebody else would have the thrash show for 2 hours. That was really cool. It was not formatted like, when Z104 became the Edge, I remember they had so few records that was alternative. They were like playing like Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. Like, well, this is alternative, right? Yeah. Compared to what KMOD was doing, yeah, but you could tell they didn't have a whole vast collection. It was like they had like 3 albums. And then it all blew up with the Marcy Playground and all that.
Cable access at all or anything like that? Like the public access TV? Like, I went to Tampa with my family when I was pretty young, and I remember they had like a lot of those Tampa death metal bands. They had shows on these cable access channels. Did you guys ever think?
We're slowly working on it with RSU.
Yeah.
We're infiltrating a little bit at a time. Dave's band Greenhorn Saints is actually going to record RSU later this month.
Yep. And they're opening for Agent Orange in October.
Yeah, we're going to do a set at RSU, but I'm not sure when it's going to actually show.
It'll show in the fall.
It'll show in the fall.
Yeah, it premieres like in.
But that's the closest thing to
Yeah,
I think
Black
Brian's,
we've got.
one of Brian's bands did an episode of Jinx TV.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I forgot about that.
Jinx
had a
High
thing.
School.
Jinx had a thing, but that, I don't even know what that was. High
Yeah.
Jinx, yeah. That was like the only thing. There wasn't really that much video back then.
Right.
Yeah, TV or anything for, you know.
Oh, and well, yeah, and there was a show that was very early that we used clips from in the show. That actually Gene Triplehorn was a host
Oh, that was
of.
way before our time. Yeah.
But that was and I think it was probably Channel 8 or something.
Dale played on that too. Yeah.
So that was before our time, but they teased it for a little bit. Some of those early bands got to play it. Some of the more early underground bands that were still palatable for mainstream TV, like the Bridge Climbers or something, that kind of stuff.
And you guys talked about NWA a lot in the film. Maybe talk about that band a little. Why were they the one that kind of made it the farthest?
Oops. Oh, NRTA.
Yeah.
When I remember my
First, they were great. They were, I mean, their record is,
awesome.
you can compare that to any early 80s hardcore band.
They were probably the biggest one to come out of here for sure.
Yeah.
And then later, Brother Inferior for our generation. But NOTA, you know, if you look at old punk docs, they'll have their sign on there, like on what's the one that has it on there?
American Hardcore. Yeah, they played in a time where they met all the legendary bands that came through, so they were part of that whole hardcore networking system. So they got to go out and they did the tours. They had a record label, put out their record. It was an indie label, put out their full length. So they got to go out and play with played with Dead Kennedys, played with Husker Du. I mean, so they went out and they put it out there and they put out a great record, and that's what you do. They toured, they put out a great record, and then they intersected with some of the all-time legends. So, I mean, if they had to been from Tulsa, you would probably be talking about them like you talk about Black Flag or Dead Kennedys. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anybody that likes punk rock that doesn't like an OTA if they know of them. So they were kind of what we looked. So they were older than us, right? They were already a thing. You know, they were actually getting ready to break up by the time our band Asylum got going.
Like 86 was their end.
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
86, yeah.
I think Bruce left in '86. It gets a little fuzzy, but we kind of looked up to them and what they had accomplished. I mean, when I was in high school, the fact that a local band put out something on vinyl was just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, my friend's sister had Moscow, the single, and I thought it was from a national band. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was like 14, 15. And that was my first introduction, but I thought they were national because they actually had a record. You know, that's how you thought back then. So.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they were the only one that made it to that degree, though? Why didn't no other bands kind of?
Well, I think they were the only ones that went and toured that much.
Yeah, Los Reactors would have been
like
another one, but not as big as NOTA, I don't think. They weren't around as long, I guess.
Well, and apparently with Los Reactors, I think one of the things was, according to Joe, was that he wanted to do more. He wanted to go tour. He wanted to throw everything in a van and just hit the road. But some of the other ones were, a little more apprehensive about leaving job security, whatever, to go do that.
And they have some really good songs, but they were hard. What would you call them?
They're kind of a heavier new wave sound.
Yeah.
Punky new wave that, I think when hardcore got big, I mean, if we're talking about hardcore, it kind of made, this is no disrespect to them, but at the time it kind of made their keyboard sound quaint. Los Reactors, which I love the record, but I mean, at the time, when you're young, you get into the hard, fast rules, and then that's your mindset. So I guess the other bands just didn't have the focus and drive NOTA did at the time, and now they grew up, they stopped playing, they got jobs, nobody lasted as long, at least that we know of. There was probably a bunch of littler bands. There was some bands, a couple other bands that were kind of from the area, Tulsa, Norman, Oklahoma City.
I think new wave was also pretty prevalent at the time because you were already seeing new wave on MTV. You were already, seeing it in the magazines. You weren't seeing hardcore. So I think breaking into an established scene is probably a lot harder for a band like Los Reactors, whereas NOTA, this is a brand new world. So if you get out there and you make yourself seen, you're going to get noticed, period.
And they were just really good. I mean, they had a great combination of, ferocity and songwriting hooks. I mean, they were hardcore, but they had a lot of rock and roll hooks. So it wasn't just monotonous blast beats that you get tired of after 30 minutes. So, have we fanboyed out enough for NOTA?
Now,
I work at Natural Pictures, and sometimes Jeff, the singer of NOTA, comes in. He works he's retired and works at a golf course now, for fun. And I still just chat him up. And then when coworkers that guy's a fucking star. And that guy, yeah, he's Jeff from NOTA. Here, and I'll pull up my phone. You want to hear it? Here's Moscow. Yeah.
Now, what has the reception of the documentary been like?
Phenomenal. Yeah, and the only thing when you do anything like this, because I've worked in the field, well, you didn't put our band in, and you didn't put our band in. Now, my answer is I didn't put my band in. And so it's there's a lot of little bands that work. We only did the bigger ones that maybe did something, and we tried to give mentions to as many as we could, just because there was a ton of bands. But for the most part, people loved it. I've never heard anybody come and say they hated it. I mean,
how many film festivals now?
We got 17 Laurels, film festivals
Across the world.
either selections, wins, honorable, just a combination, however they do it. But we finally are done with the festival circuit, and we got 17, and we're printing up posters. And Rob, if you're watching, we'd like to get this printed.
I still need to send them the small size.
Yeah, we're printing new posters with all the Laurels on it now, so movie size things.
What was the farthest away film festival that you went to?
We didn't actually go because it was during COVID. Yeah, most of them just went online. So we didn't actually, there's Barcelona and all these others. It was just
Tokyo, maybe?
Yeah.
Tokyo is probably the farthest.
Yeah, we had a lot of out-of-country ones. But ironically, like Tulsa has always been good about, we didn't get any support from Oklahoma. We entered the film festival in Oklahoma City and didn't get anything. And we did have a premiere at the Circle, 2 of them. One for the not official and the other, they both sold out, which was cool. We didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
The circle was very good.
They're great. Yeah, they really helped us a lot.
Generally speaking, regionally, no one gave them.
No love.
Yeah, Oklahoma Film Festival.
It's all the other states and countries, but Oklahoma, no. Yeah, except for the Circle. That's not a festival.
Yeah. The Circle Cinema gave us a whole week's worth of screenings.
They were really good to us.
Yeah, there's some special cinema. They can put on a lot of, and people go. It's something unique about Circle Cinema. It doesn't matter what they kind of special thing they put on. They usually get a big turnout.
Right.
Yeah, we had we had several sellouts. Our premiere was packed, and it was pretty cool. It was better than any high school reunion I would have wanted to go to.
And people laughed when they were supposed to laugh, and you know what I mean? You look, okay, it's just going to be, okay, cool, they like it, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it was really cool, good experience. And then we had, for fun, at the Starlight last fall, we had a showing at the Starlight, little bar on 11th. And some people turned out, but it was fun to do it, It was
Now,
we weren't going to.
It's still Amazon, and we still get streams off of Amazon.
It's on Amazon Prime, yeah.
Now, when you did the thing at the Circle, did you do a Q&A also, or?
Yeah.
I think we were supposed to do 2, but I think after the first one, I remember there was a lot of wine there, and I think we had to get up and pee, and then we got some wine, and then we just never did the Q&A.
Yeah.
But what
was the first thing called? A preview?
It was a preview.
We had a preview screening that before it was officially finished, and then
that way it's still under festivals. If you have an official premiere, a lot of festivals won't accept you. So and there was re-edits. We added a couple of interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
And it changed by the year later or less, by the time we had the official, it had changed enough. It was official premiere. We had entered, and then there's some festivals that don't require a premiere, and we kept entering those. So
yeah, we had a Q&A at the premiere.
Yeah,
At the preview, we all just kind of forgot about it. I think we were a little tipsy.
possibly.
Do you remember, like, what were kind of some of the questions you were being asked? Was it similar to what I'm asking you, or was it more like related to the bands? Or
Oh, God, it's been a few years.
You know, I think everybody that was asking the questions and answering them were pretty lit because we met at the Whittier before, and then we all went to the Whittier after.
I remember I was asked about the dress my son and I wore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, cross-dressing with my dad. That was him and his son. That was a song in the doc. We tried to put little vignettes of moot just to make it more interesting, you know, come up with stuff, because a lot of the stuff there's no visuals. So, but yeah, but I can't remember specific questions. It's been a few years, but
were you getting a lot of questions?
Yeah.
oh yeah.
But, you know, most of it was just people we knew, so people felt free to just yell out. You know, it was, like I said, it was like, you know, if a high school reunion could be cool.
Well, and also we worked on this out. There was no funding. We didn't have any backing. It was all outside of. We have day jobs. So it took longer, and it was fine. People kept bugging us. When's it going to be done? When's it going to be done? And so that's why we did the preview screening, just to like, okay, here's, you know, that just to be cool, because everybody's been waiting, and everybody was super helpful, like providing pictures and photos and interviews. So to kind of pay it back, it's like, okay, let's do one now, and then we'll do the final one later.
Plus,
Sit to wait forever. You know?
plus part of the preview, not only did we wind up adding stuff later, there was at least one interview with me that the audio was so bad we decided to pull it.
Yeah.
The TUTV.
Oh, the TUTV, yeah. I adjusted it. Yeah, I fixed it. Yeah, but seeing it screened, it's like, okay, we need to fix that. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things you get on the big screen, because it was like an old video, and I was like, I went and I fixed it. You know, this is just stuff people probably don't want to hear, but, you know.
So what?
The one
so-
thing we were making, we had a group, you know, Facebook group, and we used to get a lot of people that would, like, we would update what we had done. Like, we just interviewed so-and-so, and there was the faction out there that would, instead of saying cool, they would say,
What about such and such?
yeah, what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, we're not talking about that. And the cool thing about the premiere is once people saw it, they got it. We didn't get so much of the what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? This is what we're trying to do. If you're not in it, it doesn't mean we don't like you. This is just our vision, and we can only get so much in. We crammed a lot of bands in 2 hours.
And we would always ask, okay, you know, just for clarity, like Jeff and the guys from NRTA, so was that band considered punk? Yeah, we would ask people. We didn't just do it what we thought. You know, we did the research, asked people that wasn't on our era and all that, and they explained it. Said, yeah, because we didn't think they sounded punk, but they said, yeah, they were considered punk, so we included them. So it's not like it was our opinions. We tried to do it as factual as possible.
Yeah, I mean,
And we knew our generation.
some bands
was like
that maybe nobody's left here in Tulsa or that we didn't know just get a shout out or their name on a flyer because that's all we have.
And there's some great big bands that were alternative or something that just didn't fit in this. And so it's like they had to understand, it's like we're not doing that genre. There's bands that weren't punk I loved and they loved, and it's just like they didn't fit the genre. So, you know,
Yeah.
we didn't just do a blanket Tulsa music scene.
We did try for years to get Wayne from the Flaming Lips, but he couldn't be bothered with us.
And Rollins, because he played, Flag played at Crystal Pistol, and I emailed his agent. He does not do interviews. I've still got the email.
Which is bullshit. He's a fucking documentary whore.
Yeah, I want to post those someday now that we're in the clear. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, you know, the Flaming Lips played several of the venues that we focused on in the documentary. And like, boy, if we could just go down and get a few blurbs from Wayne. But, yeah, like, nah, he doesn't care.
We looked out getting Keith Morris. You know who he is? Circle Jerks, and now he's
Yeah.
in off.
Yeah,
He's a celebrity.
Red Flag, Black Flags original. Anyway, he hadn't been in town since he played at the 424 in '85. This was in 2015. So I got on, and Tip, our radio guy, helped me at the station and got a hold of his manager, and he said he would be willing to do an interview, which was cool. And he wanted a picture of him at the 424 playing, so I forgot, Dan Reif gave us pictures and gave us permission and all this stuff. And so we had one printed for him, and Terry and I just grabbed him. He was the only one available. Went to the Canes. We're waiting for him, and he was late. And we thought they were going to kick us out. And we're like, oh my God, because it was just a last minute thing. Had a couple likes, and he was great. I mean, he was the, you know,
He was our celebrity.
yeah, yeah.
Now, what are your hopes for the documentary going forward? Do you have any plans for it, or?
I mean, just stuff like this. I mean, we've already done what, I mean, seriously, we're done with the
done now,
festivals,
yeah.
and, you know, I mean, if somebody catches it and sees it on Amazon, and
Yeah, you got to maintain like a certain amount of streams on Amazon. So I guess our goal is to get enough to stay on Amazon.
yeah, and so far it's been fine. I mean, we've kind of accomplished what I mean, there's never any money involved. I mean, at all. I mean,
If somebody wants to retroactively pay us, I guess that would be
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, we've sold some DVDs. Died down. We had those just to be old school because not many people do that. But in the punk scene, a lot of people like physical copies. So you know, there's some left, but we don't promote those because it's streaming now, and you know.
I mean, our main goal was just to preserve some stuff we thought was cool.
Yeah, and put it out there and said, hey, Tulsa was in the, you know, had some great music back then.
These were
Not
our
many people
friends.
know about.
These were our people. This is where we were from, and this is what we did.
Didn't somebody, like Bruce or somebody, say, hey, didn't it about their music? Somebody found them or something. I can't remember. One of the guys.
Yeah,
Anyway.
if any other band got contacted, boy, that would be cool. Like, you know, I saw this documentary, and, you know, there's a lot of those kind of cool old stories where, like, a band like that, if you've ever seen the documentary, a band called Death, like, they put out some music and nothing ever happened to it at the time, and the main guy died, and they were a band of brothers, and later on, a label found their recording and put their record out, and they've had a resurgence. So in my fantasy, that would happen to some band that was in the documentary. Doesn't have to be a band I was in. Any band, that would be totally cool. I know that NOTA recently then had one of their 7 inches reissued through a fanzine, pressed on vinyl in England just last year with a special edition T-shirt and it, you know, magazine issue. And I'm not saying that happened because of our movie, but if that happens to anybody, that would be really cool. You know?
Yeah, and another thing, it's like as soon as and these kinds of documentaries are starting to pop up a lot. Dallas just put one out. There was a horrible one from Chicago a while back.
By Illinois.
But after ours came out, Oklahoma City is now doing a punk rock project, but it's actually organized through the Oklahoma City library system, which is cool. Hopefully that means it'll be done right. I think they've been just gathering stuff for the last, I don't know how many years, but, you know, hopefully we can, you know, inspire others to either document their scenes, or if they're already doing it, maybe to document it better, because I've seen a lot of the ones out there.
Or maybe somebody will make a coffee table book.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
About
Especially with
coffee
Terry's art.
We've actually
Now,
talked about that.
Why is it on Amazon Prime versus some other streaming service?
Because
they would take us.
yeah.
Well, I
We
mean,
begged.
well, and like if they're not, you know, now they don't. I got a thing a month or so ago saying they don't take unsolicited, which we're not. You know, I have an LLC, and so we did it under that, you know, umbrella. But now they're saying they don't take unsolicited stuff like we would do. Like it doesn't have like a distribution deal or something. So we're grandfathered in, and we're also on RealHouse.org, which is a cool independent thing.
Well,
and
and we had looked at Netflix,
oh,
but they actually make you do.
they require certain kind of cameras and stuff that are expensive. But and,
subtitles. The subtitles.
Oh, I did subtitles.
No, but they required it in like 10 different languages.
oh yeah, there's all kinds of things, and so I think
I don't think anyone in India is going to be watching it. But
Yeah, I mean-
whatever, maybe, I don't know.
yeah, I mean if there's another service that approach this or something, yeah, maybe. I mean, but Prime's fine, and so is the other one that's out there.
So you approach them, or I mean, how does it work when you end up on a streaming service? How's the politics of all that?
They're all different, but I just had to pretty much upload it, and they review it, and you know we have to have artwork, which Terry's great at getting, and that was it really. I mean, and then we had to have subtitles, captioning, and so I got a freebie program just to have it on there because you know, and so it's hilarious at what somebody
They didn't review for accuracy. Let's put it that way.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, but that's it. And then they reviewed it, they put it on, and then you know, and you get pennies per strip. So it's not, there might be like $5 go in the account sometimes, and then sometimes it's nothing. But it's to get it out there, so it's not for the money. and you can download it for like $7-8, or you can rent it for like $2 if you're not a Prime member or whatever. But it's free. It should be free streaming for Prime members right now. So.
Well, I mean, now that we're kind of winding down the interview, because they usually just keep it like an hour, is there anything you guys would like to leave it on, or, you know, if people want to continue watching the documentary or some of your music, whatever it might be?
I'm just glad people support it, and I mean, it turned out we did more than I expected out of it with the people's love and the film festivals and all that stuff. I mean, it's accomplished for me, whatever, and we can promote their bands. They're still out playing.
Yeah, a great deal of a great deal of the musicians on there, even though we're getting up there, still are doing new music, not frozen in that time. So it continues on. I mean, so there's always somebody coming up behind you, but some of the old timers are still doing interesting new music.
And he's in 2 bands, Lark, and they'll be playing St. Patty's Day Fest downtown.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah.
Shane will be DRI 2 weeks later.
And then hit Greenhorn Saints with Agent Orange in October.
Yep.
So.
Where are you playing with DRI?
The Shrine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I should
30th.
check. You know, when you're like married and stuff, you got to make sure your wife will let you go to. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Like you might want to begin
yeah,
She's
yeah.
not-
I didn't see them last time they went, so that might be a cool time to go do it. Yeah.
Last time they went, Terry and I opened for them in one of our old bands called Bozak. We had a little reunion year, 2017.
Yep.
So we got to open. I know I've corresponded for years with the singer from DRI. I used to put out books that I wrote, and he would distro them for me. So it was to finally open up for them after all these years was pretty cool. I mean, now DRI is on their 40th anniversary tour, so I'm sure they'll be pulling out all the stops.
How wild was
Hopefully they
the
got
play?
rhythm section.
How wild
What?
was the DRI played?
How wild? How wild
Yeah.
was it, Terry?
Crowd wise and stuff.
They have a pit. I can't remember.
Well, if you recall, I had my significant other at the time was going psycho because I wasn't home, so I packed up as soon as we were done.
Yeah, we almost couldn't get Terry to play. He had issues.
Yeah, I'm much better now. I like my
We had it.
significant other better now.
You know, the crowd it was a good crowd. They were enthusiastic, but you know, and there was some little bit of pushing and shoving, but no big swirl mosh pits or anything. You know, I mean, there's not that much room in the Shrine to do that, and they'd have to pull out all those tables.
And a lot of us have
Yeah.
osteoporosis.
Right? Yeah, fragile bones, bad back.
Yeah.
But the fact
Well-
that he even show up, that's a small victory.
Well, again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to do this. You know, I think this will get bigger as I keep doing some different shows. But yeah, I really appreciate taking time to do this. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm really glad you guys did the first episode because, like I said, when I saw the documentary, first saw the trailers, I was like, well, it's cool that somebody in Tulsa is doing something like this. So I really appreciate you guys taking time to do it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so it's great talking to you guys. Great meeting you, and maybe sometime we can catch up again one day.
All right.
Yeah, come out to one of the shows.
Thank you.
Yeah.
New.
All right, take care.